You've been also involved with panels and discussions and all that. What has been your favorite things to learn more about being an angel investor?
Welcome to She Invests. Join us every week for conversations focused on the growing number of female angel investors, the real unicorns. You'll hear from existing female angel investors, VCs, and fund managers on their investment thesis. From deal flow to exits, they will share the best practices that contribute to their success. Female angel investors will be equipped with the tools and resources to confidently activate their capital in order to make an impact in their community and the global economy. With your host, active angel investor and founder of Hera Angels, Dr. Sylvia Ma.
So we are so honored today to have Vidya Dinamani as our podcast expert on the line. So thank you, Vidya, for being part of the She Invest podcast. Vidya has a passion for coaching product leaders and teams. She is currently principal with Product Rebels, a company founded to help product managers, founders, and entrepreneurs make customer breakthroughs. So really focusing on that customer. Vidya has also recently been focusing on investing and mentoring startups and early stage companies. And we'll be talking a lot about that today. She has over 18 years of experience specializing in business and technology strategy development and product design development and management. She's a holder of 7 U.S. patents. She has been in leadership positions at Mitchell and TurboTax. Just an amazing individual. And I'm just honored to have you part of the show today.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. I'm honored to be here talking with you.
Wonderful. So I know that you come in and you help my entrepreneurs in our accelerator and other entrepreneurs about customer. But I think that that's really important for any investor to know. How do you evaluate a pitch and how important is that customer?
It's a great question. And it's really what I look for first. I think so many companies are trained to do a pitch a certain way in any place that you go to that's an incubator, helps you structure what it is that you do and how are you going to make money, how are you going to market, what's your growth look like. So there's a set way that you're always going to hear a pitch. But what I particularly focus on is, do they know who they're serving? And do they know it so well that when I give suggestions or ideas or different investors, if you're in a panel, they know how to answer what they're going to do and what they're not going to do because they understand their customer. And so many entrepreneurs, they want to solve world hunger. They want to be able to show that they're going to have billions in growth one day. And therefore, they tend to want to solve it for everyone. But when you're an early stage investor, you want the entrepreneur, you want the founder, the team to be so narrowly focused that you can actually understand who they're going for, how they're going to go after it, and you can give them very specific guidance of how they're going to make that happen. When they tell you it's like a 30 to 50-year-old woman and it's a demographic, essentially you're talking about a huge chunk of the world. And so if you talk about your customer like that, it really means they don't understand who they're going to serve and ultimately who's going to pay them.
As an investor, what have you told that entrepreneur to say, hey, you know what, go out and figure this out first? Because that demographic, it's like the 35 to 50-year-old woman. Yeah, as you said, it's the whole world. What have you specifically asked them as an investor? What can they learn more about their customer and how do they do that?
Well, the first thing I ask is, have you actually talked to your customer? And more often than not, you'll be shocked to hear they say, well, I ran a survey, or they talked to them really early on before they actually created a product. So there was a need somewhere that they wanted to meet, and they felt that they could develop a product or a service, some technology, anything. What they're trying to create is to meet a customer need. And whether the danger flags go up as if it's them, they're trying to solve their own problem. That's really kind of a little scary to me because they're never actually going to go out of themselves because they think they have the answer. And if they run a survey, they really haven't talked to anyone. So the very first question is, when did you talk to them? Who have you talked to? How do you know? And if they're coming back to you with very specific customer remarks, comments, insights by having talked to a number of people and then eliminated certain types of people because they're not right for their product, you're on the right track.
I love that also because, some investors definitely early stage investors are like, oh, that's me. I want to invest in that because it's me. But no matter what, if you think it's for you, you have to actually ask that question. Have you talked to other people?
Exactly. And sometimes we want to invest in things that we can help with. And certainly it's one of my criteria. I kind of think about, is this a big enough idea? Is this specific and narrow enough that I can actually see a product or a service going into the space? And can I help? And can I help is not necessarily, I know about this, is, can I connect? Can I provide some sort of insight, provide some sort of background information, etc. But it's really scary if you're like, I want to buy that product, because then it's going to be, you don't want to get in that situation where, again, it's a customer of one, because you're going to be so narrowly focused on meeting your need that you're not really thinking about the actual customer who's going to be paying for this product.
I love that. Going around your investment thesis, because it seems like to be something really exciting and why you invest in businesses. So what is your investment thesis of saying yes, and you're going to maybe write a check?
The first thing, and I tend to be fairly slow in terms of getting to that investment point, I tend to start with some conversations and then to see if I can actually help. Are they coachable? And I know that's probably very standard advice that you'll hear from a lot of investors. But it's really important to me is, how do you have that conversation? When you provide information, how is it received? How do you discuss it? And I don't want someone to agree with me all the time. I want a great discussion where we debate and where we actually logically come to a conclusion that you can see how you got there. So when it's very early on, it is those conversations. And then I will probably, if I really like the founder, I want to work with them, I feel like I can help them, then I tend to go into an advisory role where there's a little bit more of investment on my time and helping them move through some stages, making those connections and continuing to build a relationship. I don't know if you've heard this more from other female investors, but that relationship's important to me, because the way that I want to invest is, it's not just my money, it's also my interest and my time. And I want this product and this team to succeed. And so knowing that I have been working with them for 6, 8, 9 months puts me in a really comfortable place where I can write that check, because I know that I want to continue to work with them.
And what has been like the aspects that you've seen that are those success scenarios, let's say, for that entrepreneur to say, yes, I think they're going to be really successful? Is it the product market fit? What have you seen that is that success ratio or success story, let's say?
To be upfront, there's mainly technology companies that I've invested in, because that's my background and I know most about them. I can help, I can ask those questions. So when I take a look at a technology company, the people that tend to be successful are the ones that have a very specific focus. And this might sound a little contradictory, but they're also not scared to experiment quickly, working out how quickly they can learn from a market and understanding that they have a hypothesis, and then how they test that hypothesis and then come to a conclusion that then we can move on to the next step. So when we're working together, it's really not about, we know the future. Otherwise, we wouldn't be, having fun, kind of like learning about this product in the market and the customer fit together. It's really about having a point of view and a clear hypothesis that we can prove or disprove. And you'll appreciate that as a scientist, Sylvia.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's very much a scientific framework of learning. And what are we going to do with that learning? And then how do you take action? So we don't put plans in for 3, 6, 12 months. We're really much more focused on this quarter and then narrow it down to the next week, the next 2 weeks. What are we releasing? How do we learn? How do we know what's working effectively? What are the metrics to support that? And then how do we change based on what we learn? And is all of that a really collaborative effort?
I absolutely love that. As a scientist, obviously, I'm like all over this. That iterative process is so important in that product development. But I think also, like you went back at the very beginning, you said coachability is so important. I think that is kind of like a dual thing, is that the product needs to be kind of coachable or iterative. And also the founder or the founding team has to be iterative and coachable as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think the coachability, it's almost like you start getting an instinct. A couple of other investors and I were joking about this just the other day, but it's almost like you start developing a bit of a sixth sense. When someone comes in and presents, and after the very first question that you ask, the way that they reply really lets you know, are they truly interested in what you have to say, Or is it either, here's my stock answer, or it gets defensive, or it's trying to explain, it's rationalizing what you just asked. The really coachable entrepreneur has a conversation with you and is curious if they don't immediately understand, why is it that you want to know? And so it is coachable from a sense of being curious, being interested, wanting to be better, and welcoming other points of view, not necessarily wanting to change. I mean, again, entrepreneurs, I've seen some that will just write down every single thing a potential investor will say. And that's just ruinous for all the features in your product. You have to be able to listen and engage and then make decisions about what you're not going to do, often which is many investor suggestions you're not going to follow. But what you've done is you've had that conversation. And that's what I think is coachable about the actual founder.
And that's probably what you do with when you advise startups, is that you talk to them about what could be a possibility and then go out and do that iterative process. Is that correct? How that advisory role that you play?
Yeah, exactly. It's easy, I think, to continue down the path of, I know this is working, I'm going to do more. When you're trying to grow a product, when you're trying to get to market, it's really more about focusing on those things that scare you the most, the things that you don't know. And then how are they going after that? And so the questions that I have for, especially when I'm coaching or advising a lot of startups, go after the thing that you don't know, that you're most uncertain about. And if you can prove that works or understand the thing that you are most uncertain of, that takes you a step further. Doubling down on things that you already are doing well or you're well understood might look good in terms of progress and check marks, but it doesn't fundamentally change whether your product is going to be successful or not. You have to be working with someone who's brave enough to go after the uncertain elements.
I love that. And I mean, part of being an investor, we're kind of in that uncertainty. We're risk tolerant in that aspect. So how does that kind of play into your thought process as an investor of saying, I see this product, how is that going to change? How do I see that strategy? As an investor, what do you think into that?
I think maybe the best way is to give you an example. I'm working with a company right now, and we started in a place about a month or 6 weeks ago where I signed on to advise and to help them to move forward. And in the space of 6 weeks, we've done some customer research together. I actually went with them to learn about their customers. And then we try to, we had a specific point of view in mind of what we're going to do. And we have shifted 3 times in the space of 6 weeks because we have been going after, well, is this thing that would actually cause the product to fail? Is this true or not true? And when we go, it's not true. It actually is true. It will fail if we go down that path. We switch. And so that partnership, that engagement, that debate, and being willing to keep on trying and moving, the iteration that you talked about before, that's key. And I think being able to do that and see that progress and see that conversation, when you're going in and you're writing a check, you want to know that the person's really taking care of your money and focused on those difficult things and is willing to work through, change their mind, not be scared to come back to you going, it's completely different now. We've learned this, we know this from our customer, and this is the direction we're moving in. That's a great conversation.
One of the things that I love about you as an angel investor is that that process is so important to you, and typically what we've seen so far is that angel investors okay, this is the plan. We're going to go down this route, and something that might be changing might be scary to that investor. And I think that that's what female investors kind of bring to the table is that process is a little bit more fluid. Not that it's not that it's wishy-washy. It's a process of, hey, we have been trained by being in corporate like yourself or in leadership positions that change is good. Listening to a customer is good. And that process is what we help them through as that investor entrepreneur connection and that partnership.
No, I think so. I think it's also, frankly, it's more fun. I think it's more fun to be able to bring that spirit of trying to figure it out a little bit together. It's what makes angel investing fun for me. I mean, there's a risk, but it's you get to play in spaces with your experience in areas that you're interested in or you feel are going to be impactful in the future. And you're working with really smart people who are dedicating their time to it. And that can be a bit more of a partnership versus just a silent investment. I'm not the silent investment type. I want to be involved where my money is. I love that kind of combination of it's an investment and it's your experience and advice that make the package, that make you worthwhile and the right fit for a company. And so it's not just a matter of trying to kind of spread investments broadly. It's really picking and choosing where you want to be involved and how you can help effectively.
I love that, because that's something that we've talked about in the past, you and I, is that, if we would have an investor in front of us, a female investor that's thinking about investing, how do we let her know how to become involved? There's different ways to become involved. And you've talked about a couple of them. One is more an advisory role, and other ones, how can you break that down for somebody?
I think that one of the things is to go to pitches, to start listening to different companies and to get a sense of what's out there, who's out there, what are they doing. Start building maybe a relationship. There's a number of incubators, of which you have one in town. Find your local one if you're not in San Diego, but to start getting involved in the community, because you learn, and I think a lot of women do, you learn from your peers, you learn from other investors, and find someone who's an investor. I've brought in friends to pitches that have heard of things and not really sure what that means. And so they want an easy way to dip their toes in the water, and getting involved in some due diligence, getting involved in the community, understanding the types of companies around you will start giving you a sense of where can I fit in? What do I want to learn from? And that will eventually build to companies that you do eventually invest in, but you can ramp up pretty slowly by just getting involved.
I love that. And that involvement, what does that look like? I mean, you've done the advisory, actually write a check, but I also see that some people do better on becoming a board member because of that industry experience that investor has.
Yeah, a lot of the time becoming a board member, especially if you have some corporate experience, if you've got certain connections in a specific industry, companies will want to be able to tap into that. And it could be your connections, it could be your network, it could be making an introduction to the right vendor. Don't forget that you've got a significant amount of experience that kind of got you to where you are, that you can invest. And that is incredibly worthwhile, being able to look at a problem differently. So it's not necessarily just your industry. Sometimes being able to step into a completely different, has the same sort of understanding about customers or approach. So a B2B in different industries, you understand the buyer, seller, the vendor, you understand how those relationships work. If you work directly to consumer, it doesn't have to be retail. It can be a number of different areas, but your background counts, your experience counts, and you'll find, again, asking questions, getting involved. That's the most important thing, whether it's on an advisory, as a board member, getting involved in an investment community, maybe becoming part of an investment pool. All of these things allow you to learn and to test the waters before you go out on your own and write that big check yourself.
And you were part of the Rising Tide Fund with me, and that's how we learned from our peers. So how was that experience for you as, let's say, a young investor? Not young, but in the sense of, like, I know you've been only investing for a couple of years. How did that help you kind of transition into more an investor role?
I thought it was such a great opportunity. What you had was incredibly generous women who asked the questions and allowed you to sit in. It was like getting into a board meeting, being a fly on the wall and just watching how it all worked. And so having these hand-picked entrepreneurs come in and present, and watching how we set up for the call, being present during the call so you could hear what went back and forth, because there's always a lead investor, an experienced investor that was doing this. And then watching the due diligence, and you could join the due diligence, watching how the investment decisions were made. It really was a gift in terms of watching that entire process. Now, we wrote checks to belong to the syndicate, to feel like we were part of it. So again, I think some stake in this is why I think it was very powerful, because it was enough to feel like you had made the investment. This did matter. It wasn't just education, but it wasn't just one company with a big check. It was the opportunity to be able to dabble and to watch and to learn with different companies and really experienced investors. So it was, I love that framework for allowing new investors to figure out what am I supposed to do? What questions am I supposed to ask? How am I supposed to think about this? All of that is learning on the job is much easier than reading about it.
I love that. And you've been also involved with panels and discussions and all that. What has been your favorite things to learn more about being an angel investor?
I think that for me, I love the customer piece. You know this. I love the customer. I love the product. I love working with entrepreneurs. The things that take away my energy are all the legal pieces, the paperwork pieces, all of that stuff, things that are more administrative, that people who are lawyers on the team naturally kind of fall into it. I think for me, what was important is to learn all of it and not just if you left it up to me, I'd focus all my time on just the stuff that really kind of makes me interested. But as an investor, you really need to look at this completely in a 360 format, framework. And so being able to be part of something like this or being part of a advisory or a panel or a group allows you to listen and learn from experts that are not experts with what you know, but it also gives you an opportunity to give back. So the kinds of questions that you ask and the directions that you go allow you to feel like you are in the community, both learning as well as sharing what you know. So it's a really nice combination.
Yeah, it is, because that giving back piece is so important with even just those networks too, of collaboration and connections and networks. You say, oh, you know what? I have a wonderful startup. Let me connect you with that startup so that they can build that relationship. And maybe that person becomes the investor.
Exactly. I think a lot of the time that's how it starts. You know, those kinds of people, and you make that connection, you get to know people, and the same thing happens for you. Once you're part of that community, people will start introducing other people to you as well, because you're in that position and they know where you focus and what your expertise is in. So it's a nice little mutual kind of help group there.
Yeah. And then also you give back to accelerators like Evo Nexus and of course Hera Labs as well. How has that helped you be a better investor?
Well, I think the startup community is I love it. You know, it's dynamic, it's fun. I love watching people that are passionate about making a difference. And so being able to be part of the steering committees, being able to do workshops, allow people to not make the same mistakes that, you know, why repeat them? Why go into being an entrepreneur and not be given the help that, you know, people have stumbled on before? So what I like about giving back in that respect is it feeds my energy and dynamic and learning about new products and new people. And it allows me to hopefully accelerate their opportunity to skip some kind of crucial missteps along the way. So if they can focus on exactly what problem they're solving, and if they can focus on who they're solving it for and who they're serving, that allows me to feel really good about, you know, you can just see them make leaps and bounds, just jumps and understanding and focus and being able to get to that release, that launch much faster. So I get as much out of it as I give.
Awesome. And then also with those, kind of going down that road of startups and stuff like that, what has been, your most exciting story of a startup, maybe that you invested in or you advised? We've had a couple. I love stories. So anything that kind of jumps out at you?
I think the one that is the most exciting at the moment, because they just got Series A funding.
Yay.
And so I know I'm so excited for them. And when they first came, this was years ago now, which shows you how, it really is true that I sit on the sidelines for a while, then I advise, and then I invest. But this particular company had a specific direction, came into a workshop, and what he said to me was, I've completely changed my mind after this workshop about where I need to focus. And what I've seen him do is to grow people, grow teams, be able to balance his need to, he wants to give back, and his product is such that it allows him to learn from lots of different places. And while his money is being made by corporates, he's doing a lot to give back to the community. And to watch that be able to be balanced and to watch his entrepreneur grow into this really, really comfortable CEO who's confident, those kinds of things are just invaluable. It really is watching someone develop, kind of like your baby, right? You just watch them grow up, and you have this person who had sort of no idea about what they were doing, completely changed their mind, desperate to get money when we did our first round. And now he's on Series A and he's making money, he's profitable. I mean, it's just been a fantastic journey to be on.
That's genius because, a lot of people don't get that Series A and get on and on and on. So that follow-on funding is so important. Let's dive into that because I think that that's a really great kind of segue is that, myself, I'm an early stage investor. So definitely seed stage investment. How can we as investors help entrepreneurs go from that from the seed to the Series A to the Series B? What are the things that you've seen that really help that one example or others that you've seen?
I think the biggest thing is to get traction. Where you get the bigger money is when you can prove that you've got a market, you prove that you've got a product that customers need, and you show that through revenue. And so the most important thing I think that we can help with is how do they focus? How do they narrowly focus to get a product launched that customers use, to get customers loving it and recommending it so that you can show growth. And once you can show that, you can show successful cases and a successful path to growth. That's where the serious investment comes in. So to me, it's all about the fundamentals. It's all about how you make sure as an investor, they're really, really clear narrowly on who they're serving. And are they really clear on one problem that they're solving better than anybody else? And if you can check those two boxes and you can show that how they're getting customers and they're retaining customers, that's a path that continues to lead to that particular serious investment.
I love that. And also communicating. I feel also communicating that value that they've already been able to create and that traction. How do you communicate that well? That's the other side of the coin of that soft skills that the entrepreneur needs to know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think being confident, being able to get up there, tell your story, and communicate the value that you're giving and why it's so important to have this product in the world or the service in the world. That comes out of practice. You and I know this. I'm mentoring so many entrepreneurs, but it's showing facts. We as investors, we want to see a path. We want to show where you started, what you're learning, what have you done, and where are you going? All, again, for me, very narrowly focused. So you know that there's a real market with a real person who's willing to put real money down for what that person has to offer.
Yeah, that's exactly true. The fundamentals is key, and that's what you always focus on. That's what I love about you. Just exactly where you need to be. Focus. Product. I love that. So any other aspects about being an investor, female angel investor in this, and of course you're in the tech field. So anything that kind of comes to mind that you're saying, you know what, it's been a benefit to be that tech girl in an environment that you can actually actively invest in those amazing startups that you actually know that they're going to do really, really great.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just jumping in. I think I waited and I see other female investors waiting. The learning path, the jump to investment, I still feel is a little long. And so as a female investor, I would like to see more of us get involved and more of us take maybe smaller risks together. I think it's a fairly big deal trying to find the company or the companies and to write those checks. And it can be kind of intimidating. And so I know that there's, from at least personally, it's always going to be some amount of working with the team, some due diligence, some advisory capacity before the investment happens. But I'd like to see that shortened. And I'd like to see other female investors also jump in and go into areas where they're not necessarily the experts already, but their expertise is something that is going to be incredibly beneficial to those companies. And for us, I think that's the confidence that we actually have a ton to offer these companies, the experience and the advice, and just the way to think about problem solving and the way to approach, how to focus and what not to do. All of those things are really fun things to do, and take the leap a little bit faster is what I'd like to say to other female investors.
And taking it together, let's kind of piece that out, because I think that one of the things that you did was to hone in on the Rising Tide Fund and de-risk your investment and others by investing together. And of course, like learning from others. What other ways have you done it, or have you seen other investors do that to come together and invest?
I haven't. I mean, Rising Tide was the way that I'd invested before, but I wanted a way to be more confident and to learn more about the process before I did it again. So I had made one investment before I joined Rising Tide, and this was a couple of years ago now. And so that really provided a lot more confidence to get in. I know that there's other funds. I know that there's other ways. I haven't really taken the time to explore that, but I would like to. It's one thing for the future, and kind of allow me to leapfrog being able to do more investments on my own with confidence and jump in a bit faster, that, as I was talking about before. But I think it'd be more fun doing this with a small group of investors, that you're coming in and you have a different aspect of what you're bringing to the table. And so you don't need to have this big syndication. You can actually do it with 3-4 people and come into investment together. And it's a lot less risk, and I actually think it'd be much more enjoyable. So I'm looking for that, Sylvia. So yeah. I'm looking for you to do something here.
I've been trying to do it for a while, but but we've been doing it. I see also that one of the things that I love about us getting together and talking is that we have a great group of female investors here in San Diego that, I meet with Allison, I meet with you, I meet with Amy Chang, and we have coffee together. We talk about our portfolios. So that in and of itself is something that we're already organically doing. Yes. And I love that about our ecosystem. And I think that's something that you have been doing it for the last couple of years, saying, hey, you know what, let's sit down. Let's talk. What is your investment thesis? What are you doing here? What's going on here? What's a panel? All of those things are so important. And that's how we build each other up.
I totally agree with that. Absolutely, 100%.
We will be investing together. We invested, the two of us, in Rising Tide Fund. So that was fun. Yeah. So, I think that we need to do more of it. I see it also as smaller groups come together and invest in, a couple of startups and see how that goes. How can we bring value to that entrepreneur or that set of entrepreneurs that we would be, looking at and investing in together?
I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think what you're doing already, bringing women, entrepreneurs and women investors together, being able to find the one, and it's also a little bit like a match-up, right? Where it's finding the right group of people that you feel good about investing in. And that takes time, again, to form a relationship, to understand what different people are bringing to the table. The entrepreneurs are coming in are getting better and better. So I know this is going to happen. You're laying down all the path for it. It's going to be fun.
It is. It has been fun.
It has been fun. It's going to be even more fun.
Even better. Vidya, you are the moderator for our first panel at the Hera Venture Summit this year. And it is such an honor to have you as moderator for the panel that is San Diego Innovates. And we are having panelists that are the leaders in the innovation space in San Diego. What are you excited about this summit? What are your feelings about this?
I am so excited to be part of Hera Venture Summit, just overall, but I'm most excited that we get a chance to hear from women innovators talking about what it's like to be innovating in San Diego, and to bring this to be sort of this great city of entrepreneurs and founders and startups. So I can't wait to be part of this next week.
So in our last couple of minutes, I wanted to see if there's anything else that you want to, think about or talk about as an investor that, you say, you know what, these are the things that I think that are amazing about entrepreneurs or about the women that you've get in contact with as an investor.
I think for both the entrepreneurs and investors, I think it's just a certain type of, it's just so interesting. You find really just passionate people who want to change the world. And why would you not want to be part of that? I think it's just really fun. And, I think it's really hard to look at a corporate job seriously, at least for me again, after kind of going down this path of both being an entrepreneur and being an investor. The amount that things change so quickly, all about learning, moving fast, making a difference for your customer. And the kinds of people who are attracted to this type of work are just frankly people I want to hang out with. So it's fun. That's all I can say. It's a fun place to be.
Yeah, I love how you always go into like the impact of the world, because a lot of times whenever I talk to investors, they're like, oh, that's social impact. No, it's about impact in the customer that you have based on the product that you have developed. So I love that aspect that you always nail all the entrepreneurs in a good way. You know what I mean? Say, hey, you know what is your impact? Come on. It has to be part of that reason that you invest in that entrepreneur.
I know. I like the way you said that. Kind of like, I don't actually attack too many.
No, you do not. No. But it's like, you're so awesome because you're like, okay, look, have you really dialed into this? Come on, let's dial down deeper and deeper and deeper. But it's really meant to be the deeper that you go, the more impact you make. And that's what's really exciting.
I agree. And I think you just hit on something as well, which is don't be scared as an investor. If you're listening to this and it's the first time, it's your money. Be absolutely sure about I am putting money into this. I believe in this person. I believe in this idea, and I believe I can help. Those are the 3 things that are my checklist. And if you can answer those, you should be going after every question that you have to satisfy that this is the right place for you to be, because it takes time, not just the money, but it takes time, it takes effort. And you do want to go beyond. If you wanted to invest and forget about it, there's institutions for that. But if you want to be an involved investor, you've got to care about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that, I think, is really sort of like, a perfect match.
I love that. And I think that we've hit on confidence all the way through this podcast. And it's more of like, if you do have a question, ask the question. Because at Female Investors, we have a certain aspect, a certain appreciation for a product or the client that maybe nobody else has brought up. So every single question that you have is so valuable. And I think you bring up such a great point that ask the question, please. Ask the question, because that entrepreneur is going to be so much better off if you do.
Exactly. And even if you don't invest, having gone through that process with you, just know that you should feel good about having helped them think through the problem and maybe ways that they never had before. And so there's a certain level of that's what this is about. This is what at least investing to me is about. It's about really getting to move a company, an idea, and a person forward.
Excellent. So in the last couple of minutes, I always end the podcast with a rapid fire final 4. It's a tongue twister, but I love it. So the first one is, what's your favorite angel investing resource?
We've talked about it, Rising Tide. I mean, I think that they have got so much to offer, and they continue to try and put more resources together. They belong to the ACA, so the Angel Capital Association. So there's another place that you can go to. But in terms of women investors, I think they're just doing a fabulous job.
Awesome. I agree. So number 2 is, what's your favorite book?
So my book that I'm going to tell you, it's more about how to think about products. My favorite book is called Inspired by Marty Kagan. And it's a book that I read, maybe like 10 years ago as a product manager. However, the principles by which to think about customer-centered and are you doing what's most important? Are you focused? Are you really kind of prioritizing correctly? All the questions, they all help you as an investor ask better questions of the companies that you look at.
I love that. I have not heard that book yet, so that's awesome. Number 3 is, who has been a major influence in your life?
Major influence in my life. That is such a tough question.
I know.
It's like, is it friends? Is it your spouse? Is someone going to be mad at me if I don't mention them?
You can say pass.
I like all of the above. I have really been influenced, and just to keep it focused on investing, I've been really influenced by the other women investors that I've met. And, yourself included, and, you mentioned Alison and others. I love being in a community of women investors, and they inspire me, and you feel like you are doing this together and you're growing this practice together. And so that's really what's, I think, helped me and inspired me in terms of being able to think of myself and to get to the point where I am a female investor.
Honored, by the way, for that shout out. So love you being part of my network as well. It's just been a great ride and continues to be. Number 4 is, what does abundance mindset mean to you?
Abundance mindset, for me, it's what's possible. There's a phrase that we use in design thinking, and it's how might we? And so it's the possibility. It's what can we do? how do we do this together, to do it collaboratively, to know that there's many, many different ways of getting there. There's just not one path. And to open yourself up to making it to the solution, getting to the end, but doing it together and understanding that it's a process, an iterative, fun, collaborative process. That's what abundance is. It's movement.
I love that. Thank you, Vidya, so much for being part of the She Invests podcast. It has been a complete pleasure.
Oh, it's been so much fun talking to you, Sylvia. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to and subscribing to the She Invests podcast. Go on over to sheinvest.com for the full show notes for this episode, as well as any resources, websites, and opportunities mentioned during the show. Sign up for the sheinvest.com newsletter to learn about events like our annual Hera Venture Summit during the month of September and our She Invests monthly investor circles. Thank you for your time, talent, and treasure.